Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined this week by Ed Pye. Ed, we've had the final round of this leg of the New Nations Cup. Canada returned to Winnipeg for the first time in, I think it was something like over 30 years, and it was against a brand new opponent. Qualified through the African leg of qualification, Zimbabwe came to Canada for what is effectively the first time against Canada. I think they were in the US for the first two rounds for their games against, I think it was like Tonga and the USA. And so they decided to end it off in Winnipeg at the Princess Auto Stadium, which is the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in uh, the CFL. And yeah, so it's a big stadium. Obviously, one of the negatives of that is that if you don't have a big crowd, it's very easy to be quieted out by that. I will say one thing I've noticed from watching the highlights of Zimbabwe's game and this match, there is a committed Zimbabwe fan base that is following this team across North America. And that was fantastic to see. You know, all in kits, all in green and white, and that's got to mean something to those players that their faithful is with them throughout this entire series. But anyway, let's get into the game itself. This was another game similar to the one against Portugal, a very slow start in terms of scoring. I think we didn't get the first point until well into like the 20th minute, or beyond the 20th minute, I should say. And I think, and it's not for lack of trying, because there was definitely attempts for both teams to get over and score, but it was the same thing that we've talked about before. It's like getting isolated and having the ball turned over. It's passes not connecting. It's knock-ons that leading to scrums, and then possessions just getting changed over. But ultimately, the first point actually came not from a try, which has been prevalent for the last two rounds, but with a penalty kick. And I do want to mention that I think one of the things that Canada needed to do after the Portugal game was take opportunities, go for the post where needed. I think at this point, Canada had already had like a draw and a loss. They were bottom of the pool in terms of the Americas Pacific pool for the Nations Cup. You just got to win at this point. You just got to get over that hump and get it that way. And so that was pleasant to see. And then Nelson got another kick. And then right after the second kick, the Lightning started to come into the vicinity. And so we had to be delayed. I think this was very hard on anyone watching in Europe. Obviously, we're big fans of Squid Rugby over at Rouge Rugby, and he was contemplating going to bed because I think it was like 2:30 in the morning when it kicked off for him. So a 30-minute delay was just something probably pushing the limit of his rugby consumption. Thankfully, the storm passed. There was some rain though, but with the rain, it came raining of tries on the pitch as Canada got their first of the game. A great cross-field kick from Peter Nelson had Mason Flesch getting the first score of tries for Canada and then getting the conversion as well. 13-0 at the half. Fantastic to see. Then in the second half, we had a bit more evening out. Zimbabwe were able to pull it together. They got their first try of the game in very peculiar circumstances because of the positioning of the cameras. It was very difficult to see if the ball was grounded. When we went to the TMO replay, the ref said it was a try on the pitch, and even had to bring out his mobile phone to be able to contact the TMO to make sure he was getting the correct information across because of the storm. And ultimately, I've known in previous games, if you can't see the grounding or the TMO can't see the grounding, it's decided as inconclusive. But it then goes back to the referee's decision of grounding it, saying that it was a try. So Zimbabwe get their first try that way. And then almost a minute later, because Zimbabwe fumbled the restart with passes getting knocked on and picked up by Canada, it was then Canada that got a try in which we couldn't see if the grounding was definitive. And as like, well, if it's bad for one, it's bad for the other. So no matter where you look at it, Canada resumed their advantage with a try for Cali Martinez. Um, and then we had the builder of more penalties, more errors from the Canadian side, allowing Zimbabwe to get two more tries. One, the first of which was converted, the second of which was pretty much near the end of the game, and so they decided to take the conversion as a drop goal, and it went wide. But there was still time for Zimbabwe to have a go at the score again. Canada were able to turn over the ball, and despite their first attempt of trying to get another score to extend the lead, Cooper Coates eventually was like, enough of that, kicked it into touch. Full time, Canada with a remarkable 23 points to Zimbabwe's 19. And as you said, great try from Mason Flesh and great work from Peter Nelson to be able to spot that. If you remember the game against the USA last year, it was that kind of attention to details, but able to capitalize before the defending team can realize it. That's how Tyler Ardron got his second of the game. And now Mason Flesh was able to get his first here. I think that was fantastic. Peter Nelson also won Man of the Match award for this game as well. Great kicking, great foresight into where kicks needed to go. And Cali Martinez, as I mentioned, second try scorer. That's his first international try. So congratulations to him as well as picking up his 15th cap for Canada. So I've just rattled off a load of stats there, Ed, and I know you're usually the statistician for the Rouge Rugby, but I'm sure I've missed some. Are there any things that you picked up on in this game?
Well, I didn't look so closely at the stats for this game because, I mean, it was a win for Canada. I think it was a pragmatic approach that they took to this game. It really did seem like they wanted to get a win under their belts, and Zimbabwe, being a target that could be attainable. They've been very pragmatic in the game. You could see Nelson taking kicks for goal when they might otherwise go for the line. So they were accumulating points. It was a different approach that we've seen in from other games. But I think it was good for Canada to try and play a different style and actually grind out a win rather than trying to throw the ball around too much. On that Pete Nelson try, that's something that you love. The Mason Flesh try from Nelson, you love to see that. That's great to see heads up plays like that where you've got players kicking across the field. Um, I do have a bunch of stats for us collated across the board, so we can come back to those in a bit. But one thing I've noticed that tier two nations are doing really well at the moment. Zimbabwe's another one. You mentioned, they had a lot of supporters traveling with them. Their social media marketing is gone up a notch. If you look at teams like Portugal and Georgia, Zimbabwe, even Canada, I noticed after the game, they're really putting a lot of effort into that social media marketing side. So they're getting lots of like slow-mo game clips, interviews with players, and like going behind the scenes type things. So that's great to see tier two teams doing that, and hopefully that'll help build the support of these teams so that we get a bit more coverage and a bit more exposure for these countries.
Yeah, it's great to see. I think, you know, before both this and the Nations Championship were starting off, people were voicing their concerns of like the quality of competition and certain teams be involved. And know for the Nations Championship, Fiji and Japan had big question marks over them. For the Nations Cup, it was Zimbabwe and Hong Kong, China, and yeah. But I think every team has basically been able to state that they deserve to be in this competition. And when it comes to the Nations Cup, that couldn't be more prevalent for Hong Kong, China, picking up that incredible win over Uruguay on the weekend as well, which annoyingly means that despite Canada winning this game, they actually go down a place in the world rankings because Hong Kong, China leap up from 25th to 23rd. Uh, you can't win sometimes. You just can't win. But yeah, congratulations to them. And I think it's just been very well balanced matches in the Nations Cup tournament. So you don't ever feel as though one side is just getting absolutely stormed by another, maybe with the exception of Portugal, Canada, but the less said the better. And I think that, the USA have been putting on good performances as well. Zimbabwe, um, yes, they may have lost all their games, but they definitely put the pressure on North American teams as well as Tonga as well. And it was, it's been entertaining to watch, especially because, as we mentioned, like this is the first matchup for Zimbabwe and Canada ever. And I'm pretty sure it's the first time Zimbabwe's faced Pacific Island nation, and if it's not the first time, it's been a long time since they faced the United States. So these are the opportunities that we've been talking about for a while that tier two nations desperately been needing. And, I'm interested to see how this all folds out in November when we have the second leg. But you said you had some stats from the first three games. Care to share them with us?
Yeah, for sure. So I've gone back and looked at all of the three games over just to get a performance based on average games and how people are playing across the series to kind of, we've been talking about selection through each of our previous podcasts, who's doing well, who should be there, how we're building towards the World Cup. So there's a couple of stats that kind of point towards that. I'll bring a few of them up for you, just based on averages, because that's obviously over multiple games how you want to do it. It would be better to do these by minutes, but they don't actually have those stats available on Rugby Pass. So we're going by games. I've filtered out players who only played one game. So Tyler Ardron, for example, is not going to make this list because he only played one of those games. Um, but just looking across the board, our attacking players, when we look at our best attacking players through the series, if we're looking at the number of carries and the meters made per carry, so who our most effective carriers and attackers are, Cooper Coates comes out top as our best carrier, making the most meters per carry across the board. He had 19 carries across the whole series. Rumble and Quatrain were the top in terms of the number of carries, but they're down the list in terms of their effectiveness, which you could understand given that they play in the forwards. But Dakota McMullen was second there, so he's averaging 64.5. So maybe he's someone we want to see in our outside backs. Noah Flesh also maybe not one of the players who was completely locked in, but he's been one of the best attacking players across the board. He's also line breaks, one of the top players, and defenders beaten, one of the top players as well. So alongside Dakota McMullen and Noah Flesh, those two guys have been Canada's best attacking players. Josh McIndoe has been good on meters. Spencer Jones and Kyle Tremblay, both excellent in terms of the amount of meters made, but in terms of meters per carry, they were a little bit down the list there. But also, they're good with line breaks. Spencer Jones got two line breaks, Tremblay three, and Noah Flesh also had three as well. So, when we're talking about our backs, we're actually getting a bit of pay out of how many meters they're actually making and how many line breaks they're making. Um, I just wanted to mention one player in the forwards. Cole Keith, across three games, had six carries and he made 6 meters. So that doesn't point to a very high work rate. When you compare that to Martinez, who had 18 carries, made 24 meters, that is a bit disappointing, I think, from Cole Keith. I think he might need to up his game in terms of his
Mm,
carrying. He also, across three games, only made 11 tackles and missed four tackles. So defensively, that's awful. That's a 73% defensive rate. And then you add in his attacking stats as well. That points to quite a poor performance right across the board there. So um, I'll point to some other stats though that might redeem Cole later on here. But in terms of his actual gameplay around the field, I think he needs a bit of a rev up there.
mm.
Uh, when we get to the defensive side of the game, if we look at defensive percentages, Sean Parry. 100%, 32 tackles across 3 games. So he's doing well in terms of how many tackles he's making. He was the top there. We had Mason Flesh, 26, Andrew Quatrain, 28. So high work rates and defensively across the 3 games. But Parry was far and away the best tackler, didn't miss a tackle across all 3 games. So defensively, he was very good. He made one dominant tackle as well. So where do you play him? Is he an eight? Is he a seven? What's his best position in terms of his defensive game? But certainly one of the best defensive players. Mason Flesh had only one miss for a 96% defensive rate across the 3 series, 26 tackles. Uh, Piers von Dedelson, 95%, Martinez, 92, and Rumble, 92. Anything above the 90% mark is fairly elite for professional level. So those 5 or 6 players doing really well in terms of their number of tackles, the work rate that they're doing, and the amount of misses that they're making as well. Again, when we drop down the list here, we've got, down the bottom here, Nelson, Noah Flesh, Higgins. Backs, you can maybe give them a bit of leeway in terms of maybe not having the highest tackle percentage. But again, there we've got Cole Keith, 73%. So that's probably not good enough for an international defender.
Mm.
Uh, Dominant tackles. Isaac Kelly was our top dominant tackler. So he had a couple of dominant tackles across the series. If you're looking to make turnovers, like if you want to play a turnover game, if you're looking to get players like Rumble, are drawn into the game and have them making turnovers, you need someone who's making dominant tackles so they hit defenders backwards, hit attackers backwards, and that allows a second man to come in and make that steal. So that kind of points to Isaac Kelly's benefit for the team. We also had Josh McIndoe, Spencer Jones making dominant tackles in the backs as well. So backline going fairly well defensively there.
Mm.
And then the last stat I want to bring up is just individually is turnovers. So again, top of the pack, Rumble. Cooper Coates was really good here. He had the same 3 turnovers alongside Rumble. So, pretty multi-dimensional player, Cooper Coates there. Great on attack and great on the turnovers as well. Von Dadelson, Spencer Jones, and Olmsted were all at least one turnover per game. So their value to the team it can't be understated there. The ability to get those turnovers is pretty good. And then just coming to the overall stats for Canada, just in general, 18 scrums in 3 games,
Mm.
0 lost. So, when I point out Cole Keith's all-round game, the one thing that he is doing is winning scrums. Him and Martinez are doing well there in that front row to keep Canada's set piece
Mm.
effective. So, 100% scrum rate across 3 games is pretty good. So you can't fault anyone there for what they're doing in that position. When you've got bulkier players like Kelly, that's probably helping in behind those front rows as well. So scrum going really well. Lineouts, we had 41 lineouts, won and 9 lost, which I haven't grabbed the percentage for there, but if I,
18% loss.
what is it, sorry?
18% loss.
18% loss, right? So
So 82%.
82%, yeah. So not that needs improvement, obviously. You want to be getting up above that 90% mark if you're wanting to win games. That was highly affected by the Portugal game where we lost 6 of 16 lineouts.
Mm.
So the other 2 games were not too bad. We only lost 3 in the last game and then none in the first game. But that Portugal game really threw us there. So whatever happened in that Portugal game in terms of lineout effectiveness, that really affected the overall. But also 14 restarts and 0 lost restarts, 100% on the restarts as well. So there's lots of good news there on the set piece part of Canada's gameplay. They're obviously doing well in terms of their structure and getting those parts right. A couple of things they can improve with lineouts. But overall, pretty good. When you're looking at the players that were selected there. The only other stat that I'll bring up is the post-contact meters across 3 games was 950, so more than 300 meters per game
Mm,
post-contact, which is actually pretty effective if you're getting into that 300 mark. Above that 300 mark, you're actually doing pretty well in terms of post-contact meters. So I think we saw, we've got some fairly powerful players in the team. When you think about Spencer Jones at center, Tremblay is a big guy. We've got some big bodies in the forwards. We mentioned Kelly, some of those other runners, and guys to come back as well, like Owaru. Hopefully, we will see Ardron come back. Mason Flesh was doing well there as well. So, post contact has been pretty good. If you've got post contact and you can get quick rucks, that's the blueprint for an effective game plan, right? You can start getting players in behind and start building on that. Um, so yeah, overall, it's kind of a mixed bag and a 1-1-1 record
mm.
points to that. But I do think there are some good parts there that Canada are doing well, and there are obviously areas that they can improve on. I still don't know that we know what their best side is yet, but I think there's some stats there that point to the players that are betting themselves into the team.
I gotta agree. I think there was a number of players that have been able to identify and be like, this is, you know, if they're not the first choice, then they're the second choice. And I know we still have scenarios in which we're not having Canada's first 15 as whoever's available that we can bring in, and obviously that's affected by injuries, by work commitments, by other commitments, and all that going on. That to me, I don't think we're actually going to see Canada's proper first 15 until the first match of the Men's Rugby World Cup next year. And that's just like how it has to be done. But Stephen Meehan's remit for this year at least is to get new players in, get more experience, understand which guys they're going to be picking for upcoming tournaments, whether it's the second leg of the Nations Cup, whether it's the Pacific Nations Cup or that match against Japan, and and I have seen that other outlets have been going on and saying that, oh, this is Canada's only second win in as many years, and I'm like, yes, I understand that, but keep in mind that two of those games that were losses were against Fiji and Japan, two tier one nations. Okay, I think we can let that side. Yes, if we look at the autumn series last year, there was a number of games in which Canada could have won, but were within a score, or it highlighted certain aspects that, some are still prevalent, like the midfield defense is still not up to the quality that we've expected of even a tier two nation, never mind any rugby international nation that's out there. Um, and so I do agree that there is room for improvement, but the most important thing at this moment is getting young guys and new caps on guys so they can have more time at a international level so that when it does come to the World Cup, they are prepared for that kind of environment. And I think, it's going pretty well. Yes, you can argue that we should have beaten Spain. We should have beaten Zimbabwe by more. I think beating Portugal was always going to be a bit of a push. They're the defending Rugby Europe champions. I think that was always going to be a tough sell to go for. And, look at the remaining 6 games we have for this year. Uh, Next match against Japan, the match after that against Fiji. And if any of the players have any bones still in one piece, then they are either going to be playing Japan again or the USA. And then in November, we have a match against Hong Kong, who have clearly proven with this tournament that they're able to step up and get the win against higher ranked opposition. And then who do you have after that? Georgia. So it's going to be a tough ask, but hey, if you want to be in the World Cup, you have to be doing these kind of games, you need to be getting this kind of experience. And yeah, I think it's going to be, a rough second half of the year for Canada, for the men's team at least. But yeah, I think that as you've pointed out with your stats, there's definitely areas to work upon, but there's definitely areas that are going well so far. And, you know, ultimately, I've just been enjoying it. Um, of the Canadians, of the three games you've seen, who would you say are some of your best players? Who, if that you had to pick, you're starting 15 for the first game of the World Cup, and you can only pick players from this tournament. What's give the names of three who you are like, yep, you're definitely coming in.
Must-haves.
Definite must-haves from this
Oh,
tournament, at least.
based on the last three games, that is kind of tricky because we saw players coming in and coming out. I mean, Rumble across the board, turnovers, tackles, work rate, meters made. His numbers are fantastic. It's what we would expect of someone who's captained his country,
Mm,
someone who's played at a pro level for quite a while now. So I think Rumble is a guaranteed starter there. Probably Cooper Coates in terms of the playmaking and the attacking piece of Canada's game. He's got a heads up element to him and a speed and a step that just I think puts him gives Canada an attacking edge that other players don't give. Nelson's a very he's a very organized, very reliable, consistent player, great good goal kicker, obviously. So you probably want to have both of those guys in unison. They kind of play off of each other. So I'd put those two guys together in terms of players. I think, I mean, if you're going to be getting 100% scrums, then you have to continue with that front row there that's been going so well. So I think those guys probably based on their scrum work
mm,
have locked in their positions. I'd love to see more out of them around the field, but that front row is probably pretty locked in now. The only other guy, like I think some of the wings have played well. Tremblay definitely showed his hands, showed that he's a good player, robust player. The only other player that I'm interested about where he's going to play is Spencer Jones because
mm,
his numbers make him look more like to me like a 12 than a 13.
mm,
He missed five tackles throughout the series in a center position, which is a difficult assignment. But he had, three turnovers. His post-contact meters were great. He was making, dominant tackles. So that to me indicates the skill set of a 12 rather than a 13. So I think he's got to be there, but where you play him is an interesting question because it does seem like we've got more 12s in our squad than like natural 13s. So
mm.
yeah, I think there's players that have solidified their positions across the board. I think it's just the makeup of a starting 15 is the one thing that would be tricky for me and at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely agree with you with Lucas Rumble and the front row. I think you got to reward 100% when it comes to that kind of thing. Yeah, I said Peter Nelson. I know we've had a few complaints about him over the last couple of years, but I think now that under Mian, he's been able to really show his kicking prowess, and I think that also comes down to the quality of teammates that he has as well has been improving as well. I've got to give a hand to all the guys that got their first cap. I think Josh McIndoe, Jacob Ince. Um, I think those two have been like the standouts, obviously being selected for, uh, if not starting, then on the bench for all three of those games. And, we've obviously spoken how good they are from the U20 tournament last year. So, see that continuing on is definitely really good. And but yeah, ultimately, I'm glad I'm not the one, or we're not the ones to be picking that starting 15 for the Men's World Cup. Especially because we know that there's Still a good depth of talent available. Obviously Ben Lesage was unable to take part in this tournament due to his sanctioning from his red card again for his time in MLR, and I think
And
that
he
is
might be the natural 13 successor
yeah,
that holds that back line together.
yeah, and because of his ban, he's probably not going to be in the trip to Japan. But he may be showing up in November for those games in Europe. So yeah, I think there's a lot of talent going to be available. Obviously, the Europeans or anyone in a French club is maybe less likely to appear, but we shall see. We shall see. But as we mentioned,
Probably,
oh, sorry.
sorry,
No, you go
sorry,
ahead. You go ahead, Ed.
Stu. The only other guy I think we didn't mention there is Mason Flesh. He, I think, has come leaps and bounds this year. His numbers across the board were kind of middling, but his ability to get across the line was pretty impressive in all three games. So I think he's someone that has probably played his way into a starting position.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's we've just become so used to Mason Flesh being so good this year that we just forget that it's more like we expect it of him, and it's like when
Yeah,
he doesn't, that's a big problem. Speaking of which, Mason Flesh announced MLR Forward of the Year for 2026. So
there we go.
congratulations, Mason. Yeah, definitely hope that he can continue that. Maybe even get picked up by a European-based team for his success, and I think that will really help grow his game as well. But ultimately, as I said, it's going to be a bit of a break now until the next international game, which will be against Japan on September the 5th. And then after that, it is the Pacific Nations Cup. In the meantime, we have had some news come in of overseas signings. Tyler Ardron is confirmed for Provence on a 1-year contract for the 2026 to 2027 Pro D2 season. And just yesterday, Henry Kirwan was signed for the Rams RFC in England's National League One. That's a league below the championship. The Rams finished seventh last year, but Kirwan, he's been signed now. He's been signed as a winger for the Rams. So, maybe he'll have an opportunity to stake his claim. I know that was a big issue from the Canadian selection, is that no one was a out and out winger. Kieran is a pretty fast guy. He's obviously been playing for Canada Sevens, but in the 15s outfit, that opportunity had not presented himself until now. So congratulations, Henry, on that. Um, but that's the thing now. There's no more rugby on. The Nations Championship is on hiatus. The Nations Cup is on hiatus. I just had 3 weekends of back-to-back rugby all day. I don't know what I'm going to do. Guess I'll have to talk to my family and be sociable. Oh,
The greatest rivalry tour starts on August 8th, so that's not too far away.
not too far away. But I think it is going to be time for us to take a little break, cool down, relax, maybe get off that rugby jonesing that we've had for the past month or so. But we will be back soon enough with any news that comes out about Canadian rugby across the nation from coast to coast to coast. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as our written pieces on our website, therougerugby.ca. We're also available on Spotify and YouTube, and we're available across social media, including Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, all at the Rouge Rugby. Ed, where can people find you on social media?
Facebook and YouTube, Rugby 101.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Ed, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.